Welcome to It's All About the Questions, where learning to ask the right questions can help you achieve lifelong success. Now, here to help you ask all the right questions is award-winning author, international speaker, and business strategist, Laura Stewart.
Good morning, afternoon, and evening, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of It's All About the Questions. I'm excited, as always, to be here with you. And today's guest is, to me, just so fascinating. And the way she came into my life is even more aligned with the universe, is the only way to describe it. She takes care of things that I've heard you as my listeners and my clients talk about over and over and over again. Why, you asked me this question, how come I can't seem to move forward? I keep coming up against the exact same things time after time after time. I get so far and then I just can't seem to go further. It's like something's stopping me. I don't know what. I've heard the term self-sabotage. I've heard so many different terms. And my guest today, Clardy Malugen, is just one of those people that you're just going to love having met her today. Just imagine being able to effortlessly, even instantaneously, and I've experienced her work and can tell you that it does this, release the unconscious blocks that have held you back all of your life. I have always looked for it. You know, everybody says there is no quick answer, but I am telling you that my guest today, Clardy, is a miracle worker. She even has wrote a book called Let's Manifest Miracles, and founder of the Magnificence Project. So Clardy, I just want to dive in because there's so much to cover, and the show's only an hour with commercial and national news. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here. I'm really looking forward to this. I really need to thank Jackie Lapin for the introduction.
And she's been on the show before. For my listeners who didn't hear that episode, just go back and find Jackie's episode. But I feel like it was such a gift getting to meet you.
Well, thank you. You know, as you were just saying, I totally get it, what you're saying. And this is what people do. They just get stuck and they don't know where to go. And you know, I've been doing this work now. Of course, it's changed over the years. It's been since the 90s that I really started developing it all. But in the end, I just always say, you know, I listen and then I go, well, you know what? It's all about the blocks. And it really is that simple. It's those blocks they're unconscious, they're hard to get to, and they really just create havoc in everyone's lives. So, so it's all about the blocks, baby.
And what's fascinating to me, Clardy, is, you know, going into the career you're currently doing with the work you're doing, which is able to shift people at the DNA level, and we're going to talk about that in more detail. But you were the CEO of a multi-million-dollar bicoastal entertainment company, you know, a creative consultant to Disney Imagineering, NBC television. To be doing the kind of work you're doing now seems like you almost got called to it.
Yeah. Yes, I almost said I'm afraid so, which I think we have those moments of going, what was I thinking? But yeah, no, it is something that, well, I've been passionate about really all my life and just couldn't get enough of reading about every spiritual angle there was and, you know, going through all of that, all of my life. And, but when I really started putting all this together, I just found that it helped people so much, and it was so, what I was seeing, the results I was seeing were so beyond anything I had ever seen that I just felt like, you know, this is something I've got to do, and I've got to do it in a big way so I can help lots of people. And I think, yeah, it's definitely become a calling, and I have my moments of wondering what the heck, but I got to tell you, it's fascinating to me every day when I get up. I can't wait to see, you know, what's going to be, you know, where my path is going to go, what email I'm going to get from someone who did my work and has had a remarkable miracle in their life, whatever it is. It's just absolutely fascinating to me every moment I do it. So I guess that's a calling, I guess. You know, it certainly was not what I thought I would be doing at this point in my life, but yeah, it's exactly what I think I should be doing. So it's a deep knowing in that way.
Is there some question or thought process you put yourself through that made you realize the moment when, okay, I need to let go what I was doing and step into the new me of who I'm being in this moment? Because my listeners go through this all the time. They're like, no, I have to keep doing what I'm doing, even though I kind of want to do something else. They don't know how to hear that shift, make that shift, align with that shift.
Yes. Well, I would have to say that we are always being pushed into the life that we were born to live. I truly do believe that. And the work that I've done has helped me keep my own energetic frequency at a fairly high level. And for me, it would be every time I would try to say, no, I won't do this, or no, I just can't take this anymore, whatever it was when I had my head on my desk, just going, what in the world am I going to, why am I doing this? Something really would always happen. I would get a phone call, or someone would knock on my door, or I would get an email, or and I really truly do believe we all get those things. I think we get those nudges from the universe, and I think that if we're open, just open your heart, open your eyes, be there for whatever you're being told. And I do believe that is absolutely happening to everyone. I see it all the time.
Yet so many people ignore it. Is that a block that's making them?
That is absolutely. It's a block. And what's so fascinating to me is a lot of people also say, well, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. I don't know what my destiny is. I don't know what my purpose is. And I can tell you that I can sit with someone or, be on Skype with them, or however we're doing it. Within 5 minutes, they've been, just by my navigating around their blocks, they're able to just state in a sentence exactly what they know in their heart they're supposed to be doing. So, I absolutely, it's about the blocks, but also when we're talking about blocks, there's a knowing on my part from experience that the true answer is right under those blocks. It is right there waiting for you if you can just get past the blocks.
So how does somebody begin to recognize the blocks that they need to clear? I would imagine there's multiple layers, or is there just one?
I do see it as layers, and I have a process that I call the frequency formula, which I teach people how to identify the blocks in a more conscious way. And then I work with the energy frequencies, which I know we'll be talking about more, but I do that all energetically. So when we're working with helping people to understand their frequency and helping people to understand what is blocking them, we work with a system that allows people to notice energy shifts. And when they are for example, if you're in a wonderful mood, you're feeling positive, everything seems to be going right, you're following, the path that you feel good on, and then all of a sudden, you just dip. Something happens. It could be something someone says to you. It could be something that you read. It could be whatever. Something happens, and in that moment, a pattern, an unconscious pattern, causes you to do what I call go into autopilot. So you go into a space then, you go out of living from your truth, which I believe that's what you're doing when you're in that state of, when everything's right and you're in the light and everything's positive. Something sets you off. There's a button that gets pushed. And those buttons, and I've done this now for many years, those buttons are always connected to an unconscious block. And that's what, in my work, we go in and we just, we layer them off. Or I also work with what I discovered to be the concept of the foundational block. And that is the block that we really need to go after first, simply because if we can get that block, everything else just seems to fall into place.
All right. And I want to make sure that we can cover that without being cut off for the commercial break. So when we come back from the commercial break, let's start talking about this foundational block and start taking people through some things that they can begin to do themselves to help them recognize and perhaps begin to unblock. Does that sound good? All right.
Sounds great.
We'll be right back with more from Clardy Malugen. Clardy, you were starting to begin to describe some different blocks, and we left off with foundational blocks. So what is a foundational block?
Well, I see the foundational block as being the primary block that is stopping people from really achieving what they want to achieve or truly living from their authentic self, what I call the authentic self. And there's lots of ways to do this, but this foundational block, and this is one of the things I go through in my workshops in detail, so I'm going to try to give you some of the basics here. But the foundational block is created from what is normally some sort of, quote, traumatic event from childhood. And a trauma can be anything from being emotionally affected by something that is said to you or something you see, and it can be as serious as some sort of deep physical abuse or any of the types of abuse. So it runs the gamut when we're talking about the foundational block, and it's different in everybody, obviously, and it's something that what I try to do is I try to attach a belief to the block. And the one that we see the most is I'm not enough, or a variation which is I'm not good enough. And when we do the work, these types of blocks they sound very similar, but they're actually very different. But the chances are good that a fair number or percentage of the audience right now has even one of those two blocks. But what we do is
I'll admit I have that.
Okay, there you go. But what I do is I create a system of understanding where you're living, where your energy is actually sitting during any point in your life, during any point of your day, for example. And I use the concept of being in the light, which is the space of energy where you're actually in the now, you're in the present, you're living from your authentic self, you're living in a space of joy and peace and creativity and all those wonderful things that signify that you truly are, you're in the groove, you're in the flow, and things are just flowing for you. And that's the normal state. I mean, I say to everyone, that's your natural state. That's who you are. That's the place that your life can create. You can create all kinds of miracles and all kinds of amazing things can happen for you when you're staying in that space. And again, it's the natural state. Then there's that other place. And I literally say, you're either in the light or you're not. And when you're not, you're feeling things like anger, sadness, upset, chaos, worry, shame, it's on and on and on, guilt, all those things, which are actually a decision made by you sometime, usually in the childhood time, that you decide when something happens out there, you decide that you're going to get angry or you're going to get worried or you're going to feel guilty or you're going to do whatever it is. You're going to be that in that moment instead of being who you authentically are in the present time. So it's a little bit more complicated and a little bit bigger explanation, but the bottom line is you're either in the light or you're not. And when you're not, you're resonating at much lower frequencies, and those lower frequencies indicate to us and to you in that moment when you begin to understand how to recognize that, you have made a choice to live your life from some old pattern, some old block, and ultimately going back to that old trauma thing that happened that caused you to make a decision to react like that.
Okay, let me take a step back from, because I'm sensing that some of my listeners may not fully understand part of the conversation we just talked about.
Okay.
So you talked about being in the light and not being in the light. I'd like to try to put it in a way for some people that are still not comfortable with what they may call touchy-feely language, but they know they're in a block. And let me know if I'm off on this, okay?
Okay.
So I describe the light for myself as a place where things just seem to go really well. Like I don't even have to think about them, but everything seems to go my way. There's an ease about whatever I'm attempting to do, what goals I'm trying to set, what actions I'm taking in the moment.
Yes.
Is that a good way
That's exactly it. That's exactly right.
Okay.
That when your life is in the flow.
Okay. And then not being in the light can be, I'll describe it as, it seems like everything you do never comes to fruition. You're trying to reach somebody on the phone and you can never get them. You keep playing phone tag with them forever. Or you're trying to get paid for something or trying to land a contract and you just can't make any traction on it. Nothing just seems to be going your way. I mean, you can't even seem to go get gas at a gas station because every gas station you pull into, I'm exaggerating this a bit, all the pumps are broken or they're out of gas.
Right.
Is that a good description of not being in the light, the flow?
Exactly. And those types of things that happen are indicators that you are living, you're putting your energy on a block rather than putting your energy on whatever it is you want to accomplish in terms of living in the flow.
Got it.
So, yeah, that's where what this work does is it takes you to a place where you say, I'm realizing I'm feeling chaos or I realize I'm feeling worry. And in those moments, you recognize that you're not in the light or you're not in that higher frequency, you're not in the flow. And just the recognition of that can shift you back into the higher state. So I think what I'm also trying to teach in this moment is that knowing that you're stuck in a space of creating those types of realities around you, that when you're able to take control of your blocks, you're able to see that is indicating that you are operating from a block, okay? Because most people, remember, blocks are unconscious. So by definition, unconscious blocks are unconscious. So what my work tries to do is help people to notice the signals to let them know that they're actually operating from an unconscious block. Does that make sense?
That makes a lot of sense, and I appreciate that we did some clarity work around that because I feel this work is so important, Clardy.
Yeah.
I really, well, I wouldn't have you on the show if I didn't feel it was important, and my listeners know that. And so my listeners, I really want you to think about what we're talking about here with Clardy. Sometimes you just need help clearing a block. And Clardy's already given us a couple of things, awareness being a key part of it, of looking, are you in a flow, the light, or are you not? Right, Clardy? And
exactly.
it's just a simple question. Am I in the light? Am I not? And if you can't answer it, what do they do if they don't know if they are? What are some things they can think about?
I say there's no other places. You're either in the light, and you know you are, or you're not.
Otherwise, you're in a block if you don't know if you're in a
block. Yeah,
okay. All right. That's a huge aha, right? I got it.
That's why I think this particular thing is just so darned brilliant, and I've been using it for years, and I keep going back to it, and I keep simplifying it.
Oh my gosh!
the truth is, if you're not in a space of joy, you're in a block. You just are.
Wow.
Totally
got it.
Yeah. And so what you want to do then is go, okay, I'm in a block. And if you have a sense that it's again, this is something that we work on in the workshops, and it takes more than just, a couple of seconds to talk about it.
Right.
But if you have an I'm not enough block, you're going to go, okay, am I, and I call it running a block. So if you're running an I'm not enough block in that moment, you're going to go, what just happened? What did I do to go into feeling that I'm not enough? And you will be able to look back at what just happened, and you'll be able to see it, which is what's so wonderful about this stuff. You'll be able to go back and go, oh, you know what? That guy looked at me funny at the gas station, or whatever it is. It doesn't have to, it can be anything.
It can be as simple as somebody looked at you side-eyed, or as complicated as somebody screamed and yelled at you on the phone, or you observed somebody get into a car accident. It didn't even happen to you. It happened outside of you.
Exactly. And I think the value of all of this work is that when I am teaching in any of this, I say always, you make the choice in every moment, and you create your own reality in every moment. So there is a split second there between when something happens and when you react. And in that split second, you have the ability to decide that you're not going to respond from your pattern. You're not going to be responding in a way that doesn't represent what you are in the flow, right? You've got that moment, and you can decide that you're going to stay in the light no matter what happens around you. And when you have that power, you're free.
It's when we come back from the national news break, we're going to talk to Clardy about how international physicists have studied her work, and they have actually shown that there's shifts at the DNA level, and scientists have been studying the work she's doing. So we'll be back after a brief national news break, and with more from Clardy Malugen. Welcome back, everyone. If you're just joining us, we've been speaking with Clardy Malugen, former CEO of a multimillion-dollar bi-coastal entertainment company and creative consultant, even to Disney Imagineering and NBC TV. But what we're talking about is her calling, the new work that she's been doing for a long time now that has been proven by international physicists who've studied her work that she can access and transmit energy that shifts you at your DNA level. We're talking about blocks. We're talking about those things that you just can't seem to break through and make a change in your life, in your business. What would your life look like if you were not holding yourself back? And these are unconscious things. So, Clardy, before the break, we talked about so much around foundational blocks and how to know whether you're being stopped by a block or not. What fascinates me about the work you do, which I've experienced and I know it works, is that scientists have studied you, trying to understand how your work works, how you change these things at a DNA level. How did that come about?
Well, it's funny because in the beginning, I didn't know what to think either, honestly. I've been doing the energy work itself around, I think, about 5 years now. And I remember the first few weeks of it, I was blown away, and I didn't know what to think. I couldn't believe what I was seeing. I couldn't believe what I was experiencing. And I ultimately, I'm a manifester, so I've been teaching all of the manifestation for years, so I know how to do that. So I said, look, I'm just going to manifest a physicist. I'm going to have to find someone who can explain to me, because I knew it was real. I knew it was happening before my eyes. I was watching people shift, whether it was a physical healing or an emotional healing or whatever we want to call it, a dramatic transformation. And I just couldn't quite figure it out. And I wanted to know. I wanted to know what was happening. And I thought, well, a physicist is going to be able to explain this to me, because I know it's energy and I know it's real. So let's find one. And that's really how it happened. It was all going along with my crazy, wonderful manifestation stories, I'm thinking of 3 of the physicists off the top of my head. All were involved in that type of a manifestation story where they just appeared. And ultimately, I first worked with a Chinese physicist who was very aware of similar types of energetic transmissions, and I ended up healing her, and I use the word heal. I worked with her energetically on a physical issue that she had and was able to help her with that. But she began doing testing, and ultimately, they in that particular with that group, they used laser devices and were actually measuring the energy itself. I went on to meet a group of Russian physicists who also were engaged with these types of energetic products, et cetera. And they were initially, at that point in time, I had been working with people who had Lyme disease, actually. And I was very excited about it and wanted to tell a physicist about it. And of course, there I end up sitting next to this person who was a Russian expert. Didn't know why, just happened to sit there, and there he is. And ended up explaining to him what I was doing with Lyme disease and fibromyalgia and chronic fatigue. And he immediately said, no, we need to measure this. We need to see if we can actually instill or infuse these frequencies into trace mineral solutions. And so that's how he got engaged and he got involved with these testing things, because they ultimately wanted to work with me to infuse trace mineral solutions which could actually capture the energies and help people just by taking these mineral drops. So that's where it all started. And then, of course, then I started asking lots of questions and I started getting lots of answers, and it sort of just went from there. But very, very, very fascinating stuff. Yeah.
I love that you were like, well, I just kind of happened to sit next to somebody that. Yeah. Well, that's totally an example of what you were just talking about prior about being in the flow, being in the light.
Absolutely. And let me just tell you a couple of seconds about that particular thing. I went to a conference because I said, I have to go. And I went, I can't go. I've got too many. You have to. And I was on the plane. It was one of those. And I went, whatever, second day or something. I went and I sat down, and the person who was speaking, like the main person at the convention, was standing there talking about this amazing Russian physicist and he went on about this person, and I went, that's the guy. I've got to meet that guy. That's the one I want to meet. And of course, there I was, literally sitting next to him. So yeah, it was great.
It's amazing what happens when a plan comes together that you didn't know you had.
It's so true. And I tell everybody, when you're in that state, when you're living from your authenticity, these things just happen. And it happens all the time for so many people that I work with and all my students. I get all these incredible emails and, messages on Facebook, et cetera, about people having these kind of things happen. It's so wonderful. It's so fun.
I love it. So let me ask a question then. We talked about how you can determine if you're in a block. And it was really, really clear how somebody can. Either you're in the flow or you're not. If you're not, you're in a block. Which is still just like, oh my gosh, that's so easy. Yeah. Are there some areas that my listeners can focus on, knowing that they want to start letting go of things that are limiting them, that they can begin to do on their own? And you've mentioned workshops. I know you have a number of amazing programs, including something called a release-a-thon coming up shortly that people can sign up for and do.
Yes.
But what are some...
the release-a-thon, I mean, that's a great example, because when you're asking what can you do, in this particular course, we deal with relationships that might be dragging your energy down. We deal with everything that might be dragging your energy down. And remember from our previous conversation, anytime your energy is being dragged down, you're actually working a pattern, or there's something there that's activating one of your blocks. So we kind of work backwards, if you can kind of understand where I'm going here. We look in your relationships. We look in your relation to finances. We look at your health. We look at your fitness level. We look at your career. We look at the whole picture, and we look at the places where you feel the most blocked, and then we work on those things individually. We just eliminate them. Whether it's something as simple as, you're creating chaos in your life by having, I'm making this up, by having a closet where clothes are thrown all over the place. Well, we make you put the clothes on the hangers. We make you clean out your closet. And then when that chaos is gone, what comes up for you? What's there for you? Is that a block? What is that block? And that's the way we identify these things. So with the Release-a-thon, it's a fun way to just release things in your life that might be tugging your energy down. And then once we get you into that higher energy state, which is going to happen when you get rid of things, then we can really have a much better venue, call it, to really look at what those blocks are and how deeply they're affecting your energy system.
Okay, so are there some things that they can do if they don't sign up for the Release-a-thon that they can begin to do on their own to start focusing and letting go of some things?
Sure. I mean, one of the things you can do is just look at your physical environment. One of the things, and let me just go back for 1 second, one of the things that people do to keep themselves from having to look at the block or the pattern is that they create chaos. So that keeps them busy. It keeps their mind busy so they don't have to deal with this block. So what do? They create chaos by not keeping a neat environment. They, like the back seat of their car is full of junk. What I would suggest is just taking a quick peek and how can you make your environment more clear? How can you show yourself that you're ready to let go of chaos and really get serious about creating clarity and peace in your life? And do it on the outside. Do the outside things. The other thing is a big thing that we work on with all my classes is relationships. We often have relationships with people that do drag us down. And in many cases, these relationships are mirroring an unconscious block. So we ask people to look at the relationships. Do you have a relationship, an ongoing relationship with someone who, you just don't feel good when you're around them? That is a signal to you that you are somehow attracted to that energy because of a block. And on that note, one of the most fascinating things that I find absolutely fascinating about this work across the board in all of our courses.
It's going to wait till we come back from our last commercial break. We're going to find out.
Talk about relationships.
Yeah, we'll find out from Clardy what one of the top things is that I'm really looking forward to it. I kind of wish that we didn't have a commercial break coming up. I want everybody to think about this question as we go into our commercial break. If it's on podcast, there is no break. We'll just be right back. What would your life look like if you were not holding yourself back? What would your life look like if you were not holding yourself back? Tweet it out if you want some support. We'll be right back. All right, I have to know, Clardy, what's the most fascinating thing about the relationship part that you've learned?
Well, I have to say this is ongoing every time. And when people's energy shifts and they identify and release their foundational blocks, their relationships just change. And it's fascinating because I have people saying things like, I don't know what happened, but I have a completely new set of friends. Or I have some of the relationships I was in that were not positive to me. I don't know what happened to those people. They just disappeared. I mean, it's like that. It's fascinating because when the energy shifts between relationships, something just happens. It's magical, and someone will just suddenly need to move out of your life, and it's not a negative thing. It's not unpleasant. They just move out, and someone that really does resonate with you, who really supports you in very positive ways, just shows up. And it's fascinating, really. That's one of my favorite things to watch because I get those emails all the time. It's fascinating because the relationships just shift, and they don't seem to have. There's not a catalyst other than the fact that they just do. It's not like people fight or anything like that happens. It's just that someone just doesn't call them anymore, or someone just. It's amazing. Anyway, so that's one way that when you shift your frequency, you shift your energy, things around you just naturally transform.
Like you coming into my life.
Exactly.
And me coming into yours, I hope.
Exactly. Yeah, no, exactly. It's wonderful.
All right. We've skirted around some specific examples of kind of the work that you do. I know you do a lot of work with people with Lyme, which is something I've struggled with for a number of years. Would you be willing to share, say, an example of some, I'll call it a miracle, of the work that you've done?
Oh, yeah, sure. I've worked with many people with Lyme, and we have a very just really remarkable success rate. And I don't want to even quote it because it's very remarkable. And I've had people with this and other diagnoses. I don't call them illness. I call them diagnoses, just because to me that's where I want to keep it. But literally have to be carried into my office, or have to be or in bed when I do the first Skype session with them, and ultimately their lives are they're just completely better now and are living a normal life. It's really remarkable. And in terms of in this case, I do the energetic transmission work with these people, and we do it both on Skype and in person occasionally, much less in person because most of the people that I work with are all over the world now, so I work on Skype. But it's extremely important with these types of I don't even want to call them illnesses because I don't believe I have a different way of looking at it. When I am working with someone with one of these types of things, I look at them and I just see a field of energy that is just not congruent with what they really are, what their real energy system is. So I can see that there's a very deep-seated energetic component that is at the root of whatever this is. And in terms of Lyme disease, I'm thinking of one person in particular who had been very sick for a very long time and showed up on a 5-week break from antibiotics because she was going to have to do a PICC line, and they were going to put this in 5 weeks, but she was too weak to even do that. So she was given 5 weeks between time to just rest, and during that time she decided to come to see me. And it was a fascinating study in her case because she would come in, we would do the work, and after the work there's a reintegration period. She would feel incredibly good for a few days, and then she would slip back a little bit. We would do another session. She would, it was just progressive to where after we ended up doing 5, which is actually for me a lot. We typically don't do that many, but in this case we did 5. And after the 5th session, this was literally a few days before she was scheduled to go back into this doctor to have this PICC line installed. And at the last one, at that point, she was walking out. She was already out playing on a 4-wheeler in the woods. She was, she had completely had an amazing recovery and an amazing strengthening of her system. But by the time she went to the doctor, it was just not showing up. It was gone. They told her she didn't need any kind of antibiotics because the Lyme was just not there. So I think that the important piece is, as you were saying before the break, about what is the vision of what it is that you want to be like. What is the outcome that you want? And I see with so many people who are dealing with these types of diagnoses that they really do see themselves as being sick. And what I do with my work is I place them into a space of what I call perfect health, so that we take them out of this negative energy space of identifying themselves as sick and instead shift that energy around that and place them back up in a space where they are able to envision what's it going to be like when I am completely healed of this, and what is my life going to be, and what will be my next steps, and what is this going to look like. And that particular piece of this is so incredibly important, whether you're doing visions for getting rid of your blocks or whether you're actually being healed from some sort of diagnosis or disease.
I think that is so important, because I found for myself sometimes I slip backwards and I don't understand why. I know that I want something and I'm fine for a little bit, and then it's like the brain wiring seems to come back in. We only have a few minutes left to the show, and I know my listeners would love to find out how to communicate with you. You had mentioned the Release-a-thon, and I also know that you've been kind enough to offer something for free to my listeners to help them.
What I developed in addition to, we wanted to find all kinds of ways that we could deliver these energy frequencies to people. And in the Release-a-thon course, we have a 20-minute MP3 called Movin' and Making Miracles that has a motivational teaching in it for 20 minutes. It's something you use while you're exercising. It also has a subliminal track for abundance. And then I'm transmitting the energy on this, plus we have frequencies that were added to this motivational music track. So we're actually giving this energy upgrade in 5 different ways on this particular program. And this one is offered in the Release-a-thon, but we also have a shorter 5-minute version of this that I absolutely love.
Make sure you get the information in.
You can go to miraclemaker.com, and all you'll see there is a page that will allow you to put your email in, and we'll send you that copy by email. We'll send you the MP3 for Manifestation Machine. So it's a lot of fun, and I think you'll love it. You'll love it.
Okay, and they need to go to miraclemaker.com?
Yes.
Okay, and I'm sorry. That's okay. If they want to get in touch with you to find out more about the Release-a-thon or work with you.
Yeah, they can reach me at ClardyM.com. If they want to email me, it's just Clardy at ClardyM.com. Information about the Release-a-thon is at releaseathon.com. But it's all also on the website. So Clardy, Clardy, at ClardyM.com. Or again, Release-a-thon, and your free MP3 is at miraclemaker.com.
I really encourage all of my listeners to check out Clardy's website and download that 5-minute MP3 that she has. I worked with her on a group call just for one thing, and we've met in person a number of times working on some different stuff, and all of a sudden my life shifted. I mean, some of the depression around my mom significantly lifted, and I'm feeling joy in a lot of other ways. So I just want to encourage everybody to really take the opportunity to imagine what your life would look like if you were not holding yourself back. Thanks, Clardy, for being on the show today.
Thank you. I loved it. Lots of fun.
Same here. And remember, everybody, the right questions can change your life. So what are you asking today? Remember, ask about your own blocks, because, it would be nice not to have them. Hug someone you love. Have a great day.
You've been listening to It's All About the Questions, starring Laura Stewart. Connect with Laura at it'sallaboutthequestions.com and download a free workbook that will help you ask better questions starting today.